Hi geometry students, we're going to start 4-3 today. And in this video we're going to focus on that first objective, name and use corresponding parts of congruent polygons. We're going to worry about proving triangles congruent using the definition of congruence in class tomorrow. So in two congruent polygons, all of the parts of one polygon are congruent to the corresponding parts or matching parts of the other polygon. So we can look at these two triangles here, and we can see what parts are matching or corresponding to one another. So what might help you out when you're looking at these triangles is to draw them on your paper so that they're at the same rotation, or the same position. So for example, here I can rotate my triangle so they are the same position. Now notice that A and H are congruent to one another because of these arc lengths here. So A has 2 arc lengths and H has 2 arc lengths, therefore they are congruent. B and J are congruent, C and K are congruent. And notice that BC is congruent to JK and CA is congruent to KH. Now notice I said CA is congruent to KH. C and K are congruent to one another, and A and H are congruent to one another. Order does matter. All right. I put the C first, therefore I'm going to put the K first. I put the A second, therefore I put the H second. So now can you look at these triangles and write out these triangles, their names, showing that they are congruent to one another? Well, they're going to look like this. Triangle ABC is congruent to HJK. Notice they match up with one another. Order does matter. And so you can write them next to each other like HJK and know that A and H are equal to another, are congruent to one another, B and J, C and K. All right. So this is a valid statement. This is true. What about this statement? Triangle ABC is congruent to JKH. Is that valid? No, because they do not match up. A does not match up with J. A has 2 arc lengths here and J has 1. So this part is not valid, this example. Let's look at another example. So here on this example, you're going to pause and practice once I'm done speaking. You're going to show that the polygons are congruent by identifying all the congruent corresponding parts. Then write a congruent statement. So again, I would write this on your paper so both the polygons are in the same shape or same position rather. So here I can rotate this like so. And I know they're in the same position because D has 4 arc lengths and so does Z. W has 1, A has 1, B has 2, X has 2, C has 3, and Y has 3. So I will show you an example of what I'm looking for. I want you to name all the angles that are congruent and then all the sides that are congruent. So for example, I would say angle A is congruent to angle W. So I want you to list all those out, pause the video, and then we will compare answers. So here are all the congruent angles you should have written down. They are congruent to one another based on their arc lengths, how many they have. Now let's look at the sides. Again, order does matter. So let's start with this side here, the one with the double hashes. AB is congruent to, now how are we going to write this? Are we going to write XW or WX? Well, we have 2 hashes here, And we said A was congruent to W, so it has to be WX. Order does matter. Let's try another one. Let's go up here. And feel free to use different colors, or if you guys have highlighters, go ahead and use them. So now we have BC. Okay, what order are we going to write that in there? Well, B is congruent to X, so we're going to write the X first. It's congruent to XY. Let's try the next one. YZ here and CD. So how am I going to write that? Am I going to write, if I want to write CD, what's my other segment going to be? Well, C is congruent to Y, D is congruent to Z, so it's going to be YZ. Order does matter. You're not going to get sick of me saying that, trust me. Okay? So now here's the final side. So now, if we're going to say DA is congruent to, we have to say ZW because D is congruent to Z. There. So now we need to write a statement showing that this whole polygon is congruent to the other polygon. So let's say, and you could just write the word polygon, you don't have to draw a trapezoid. You could say polygon A, B, C, D is congruent to, all right, we got to think about this. How are we going to line it up? Because order does matter. So what was congruent to A? It was W. What was congruent to B? It was X. C was Y. And D was Z. So that would be your final answer for that. Now we can also use these congruent methods to find the missing angle. So in the diagram, triangle ABC is congruent to DFE. So we could even rewrite it so we know what side's congruent to what side or what angles. So DFE. So A is congruent to D, B is congruent to F, C congruent to E. So how do you think we could figure out X and Y? I would start with the angles first. So angle B is 99 and angle F is 8y minus 5. And we know they are congruent because these two triangles are congruent. So we can say 99 equals 8y minus 5. So go ahead and pause the video and finish this equation. All right, you should get y equals 13 for your final answer. Now we need to figure out what x is over here. So again, we can have, we know BC is going to be congruent to FE. So BC is 38.4. And then we have FE, which is 2 times y. But now we know what y is. Y is 13 plus x. So we can do this because BC is congruent to FE because order does matter. And by definition of congruent, we can set these equal to one another. So go ahead and pause the video and finish this problem. You should get x equals 12.4 for your final answer. All right, so this is the problem that you're going to submit your answers to me below the video, and make sure you do that. And I would rewatch this video as many times as you need to so you understand it. Okay, once is probably not going to be enough. Make sure you rewatch so you understand, come with questions, and give me your answer submitted below. And make sure that your sides are lined up because order does matter. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.